Welcome to a special session edition of This Week in Missouri Politics. Every week, we sit down on our social media platforms and do something we like to call TWMP Daily, where we bring you news-making legislators, key figures in state government, and really people from all around the state we find interesting at the time. You can find on all of our social media outlets. This week, at the front end of the Senate taking up the special session items, which were tornado relief and some stadiums in Kansas City, we sit down with the 58th governor of the great state of Missouri, Mike Kehoe. This week, we're going to bring you part of our TWMP Daily interview with the governor. Welcome into TWMP Daily. We are joined by Jake Croson with the Missouri Times. Jake, thanks for the time.
Always happy to be here.
And the 50th governor of the great state of Missouri. Governor Kehoe, thanks for making the time. We appreciate it.
Thanks for having me on. I'm looking at all the paraphernalia you have on your desk. Why do you have Marshak's hat? He's a sheriff, for God's sake.
Well,
you know
trust
how I
him
feel
in-
about law enforcement and Kehoe in particular.
I don't trust that many cops, but I do kind of trust Marshak a little bit. I don't know-
We're putting him right in front of the Stein of knowledge.
Exactly. That was given to me
Yeah.
by Jeff Kogel. Jordan Lamb, give me this.
Oh,
The lady that puts up with David Castile, give me
Yeah.
this time.
I know that. Very good.
All right.
Thanks for having me on. Yes, sir.
Special session kicks off, I guess, right when we're doing this. Well, it's
Right.
Senate time, so probably we'll be well done.
That's,
before
as you know, Senate time is time with the calendar. But
Yeah.
right. Mhm.
Give me the elevator pitch on the stadium part of the special session.
Well, I would call it an economic development package. There's two companies in the west side of our state who employ over 4,000 Missourians that are ready to invest somewhere between $2.5 to $3 billion in new facilities. And other states are kind of courting them. And so we would like to potentially put a package forward to keep those two businesses. One is the Kansas City Chiefs, one is the Royals in Missouri. Our finance part is allowing them to keep some of the taxes that they already send in, but it's almost the smallest piece. There's a local piece. The owners and ownership group has to put significant money, I mean, millions of dollars into this, hundreds of millions. The local county or counties, whichever place they pick, has to put money in. So there's several different requirements to make that match work. And the social media numbers that somebody has shown me, as you know, I don't get on social media. It drives you and Claudia crazy. Aren't exactly accurate. But so that investment is a piece of the special session. I think a very significant piece of the conversation is relief for our storm victims that we've had, as you know, since March 15th down in Butler County. I was at the place the next day in Butler County. But since then, we've had flooding in the first week of April, and then obviously the tornadoes we had in both Scott County and St. Louis City and County just a couple of weeks ago. There's some revenue sources in there for people that are underinsured and uninsured, as well as a tax break for those people who did have insurance and can utilize that for a tax
I
break.
guess the legislatures, they're taking bills now, I assume. Are you going to run the disaster part separate?
Yeah, there's an appropriations bill, to answer your question, that has the non-GR components from the old House Bill 19. So this is the mental hospital in Kansas City. This is funding for state parks and different things that were non-GR. Within that, we will have two additional GR things. One is MER, the nuclear reactor up in Columbia. University's been great to work with. Moonshower and his board have been great to work with. Wasn't the amount that was in 19, but they understood that there had to be some amount for storm victims. So in that appropriations bill, we'll have the tornado relief for the counties that were affected by storms. That will be an appropriations bill. And then the economic development package will have the incentives and some other economic development pieces in there for the Kansas City opportunities.
Okay, so to me, the Chiefs, not that controversial. People have talked about the numbers. I've seen all the numbers on social media. It's funny. Folks think they're business experts. I've not seen them be much of one. You're a business guy. You've actually employed people, lots of people. You've built businesses. You bought businesses. End of the day, the Royal Stadium. Does it cash flow for the state of Missouri? Do you believe it's a good deal and it'll be a net positive?
Wherever they locate on the Missouri side, we hope it will be a publicly owned facility. So it won't be owned by the teams. They'll agree, if the package were to go through, they'll agree to a 30-year period of time they have to stay there. But the definite ripple effect and the economic effect is incredible for the state of Missouri. And I would argue that it will be one of the most successful contributors to our economy on the west side of the state. Either one of those stadiums, by the way, regardless of the team who plays in them. I'm very familiar with what you feel about the baseball team on that side of the state.
Well, at least I feel something about them.
Well, they are my favorite American League team.
Wow, that is the most backhanded compliment I've ever heard in my life. Whoa. I guess I got a cousin I'd rather kiss first.
There's Mr. Sherman, who is that's a new ownership group, as you know. David Glass owned it for a long time, and I keep telling him that Don Dinkinger was always on my Christmas card list. And he said, really? And I said, yeah, for a lump of coal. So,
Yeah, I saw this 30 for 30 ESPN did it, laid out all these death threads. It had 6 or 7 of the ones I wrote him featured. I'll just show you. I did Wake Up Mid Missouri today. And I interviewed Wes Rogers, great guy from Kansas City.
I know Wes.
I interviewed Nick Schroer, Doug Beck,
Yep.
even Claves. And all of them thought it would be a very good signal if Kansas City apologized and returned the trophy. Because, I mean, you can look right here. I mean, he's orders out, right? Jake, even you could see that, right?
I see a Royals win.
Oh, my.
Of course.
That's why he's wearing blue. For guys, you should have said he had to wear red
There's
today.
the World Series MVP standing right back there. I mean,
AKA the umpire.
Yes,
Yeah.
Donnie, wouldn't
Thank
it be better if they just apologize and return the trophy? Then doesn't make that your job so much easier.
Will we pick up any votes if they did that?
Yes.
Okay,
Yeah,
there
I
you
think
go.
So, I mean,
And we'll make that request.
Wes said he was willing to return the trophy.
But back to your point, the employment opportunities is one thing, but the ripple effect to the economy on the west side of the state is something that it's harder to quantify. The waitresses, the gas station people, the restaurants, the hotels, the different places that get the economic effect from their 81 home games are from the Chiefs home games, much less the concert venues. The Royals have clearly said, should they build a new facility, and I think it's not a secret that they want to not stay in the Jackson County current sports complex. So wherever they go to build a place, hopefully on the Missouri side, they would make it conducive so they could have entertainment such as Arrowhead does. So there's a lot of.
I mean, is there a place in the Midwest with 100 acres, with 2 exits on an interstate, with the skyline of a city in the background? That Northland site, boy, it looks like it's got a lot of potential to not just have the stadium, but to have a lot around it.
Our offers are agnostic as long as they stay on this side of the river. I don't want to get into which county's better.
I think
They'll decide that. They're great business
I think
people.
part of the reason they struggled with their first vote in Jackson County was I think it was hard for people to really envision a stadium on a tract of land that small. I think that was a thing that hurt them. But across the river, I mean, whatever they do at that site, I mean, there's a ton of potential. There's so much land.
The Missouri site, whichever one they pick, will be great. So,
Well,
and the other thing in Jackson County, and this is something that there's a lot of people in our caucus, including me, is very passionate about, and I think in the Democratic caucus as well, is the out of control property tax assessments that we've seen, especially in Jackson County. That's a big issue, and I think that was one of the reasons that as you recall, in April of 24, it was a question before the voters just as they were paying those bills, and so it's a little tough to make those decisions when they see those astronomical increases.
end of the day, I'm trying to think of a governor with the business experience. Maybe Lloyd Stark. Maybe really go back to Lloyd Stark for a governor that has the business background you have. This is a good deal for the state of Missouri.
Yes, it is a good deal for the state of Missouri. But here's the piece I've talked to some senators this morning that weren't, exactly sure if this is where they want to go. I said, if you don't think it's a good deal, would you please vision the teams being gone and what we do at the Jackson County Sports Authority and what that looks like and what that facility is? It won't take long for the Jackson County, you and I would call them a county council. They call themselves legislatures, which is fine. But they'll be coming to us saying, hey, we got to do something with Arrowhead. It's falling down. It's a meth house. We can't know. What do we do with this? What are you going to do with that piece of ground with nothing there? Look, it needs a little bit of a continued punch in the arm economically in that area. Mm-hmm. And it won't be long before somebody comes knocking on the state door saying, both these teams are gone, and can you help us do something with this facility? You don't want that.
I thought the plan was masterful. It looked like it was all set up. Where were you at Friday when somebody told you the House was going to scuttle House Bill 19?
I was in my office.
I mean,
I wasn't hiding, but I said
it was a Mike Kehoe deal. It was done so well. You've got that guy in Drew that does not miss a lick. Everything it felt like was set up to just make these clocks all strike at the same time. And the minute that I'd heard some of these rumblings the week before when they did 19, the first thing I thought of, he's got to be pissed.
Well, let me make a small correction too, and I don't like to correct you because it'll come out. You'll be after me for something else. It was actually Thursday, as you recall. The House didn't come in on Friday, and so I'm sorry, the Friday of the appropriations week. It was Friday. I stand corrected.
Wow.
Yeah. So I made a mistake.
Let me clip this, Kelton, and make sure it's
Yeah, we'll get it clipped. But you mentioned Drew. That guy is everywhere.
man.
And so doesn't matter House, Senate, Democrat, Republican. A lot of people have a lot of respect for Drew Damp. We have a great team. But Drew's one of them. But Drew came to mind. I said, how's everything going, Drew? He goes, well, it's going good, but I don't think they're going to take up 19. I'm like, what? So
Well, my assumption is you knew what the plan was, especially by the Friday before. You had this come together. Everything went fine. I mean, but back to Drew. I think you could put Drew at this point on any department in this state, and nobody would bat an eye. I mean, I think he's been that good at this job, a tough job. I don't know if there's anybody in the state that had a better session as far as just professionalism, accomplishment. He put a lot of W's on the board.
Well, listen, we have a great team. There's a lot of people in our office that support Drew and will do other things.
Franklin County on a gravel road, because I mean, Shot should have to pave that thing.
You would think so.
No doubt. I mean,
But Drew has definitely done a good job in the legislature. We got a great comm staff. Gabby's with us here today. Adam Gresham's done a good job heading that up. We have a lot of really good people that are helping me because I need help. You know, I'm not that smart, so I do need a few good people around me.
all right, back to this. Friday, you see the House bill done. You have an idea of what Monday's going to bring. You've done this. You've been in the Senate. You had to know this makes my job much harder.
It was a gulp moment,
Yeah.
that's for sure. But I'll tell you that, you and I, that I've had a long-standing relationship with Lincoln for a long time. I have a lot of respect for what he in the Senate does. But Dirk Deaton's done a really good job this year. John Patterson, Alex Riley. So I don't want to pick sides, but you also, when you're in my role, you want to respect certain opinions of different folks.
I don't think people can quarrel too much with the final product of what Lincoln and Dirk put together. I think that even if they would have just tanked that bill, that's one thing. But when they have to come out 72 hours later and say, "Oh, well, this bill we just got, it's a little bit, it's expensive." It really was put in. I think people have already forgotten about, for the most part, how they did that. Now next year they wouldn't want things in with these extra bills. They want them operating bills. But it put him in a different world. You've dealt with PQs. I watched you deal with two. One I thought was absolutely the Democrats' fault at special session on an abortion bill when a deal was made that somehow didn't include that. I really thought that was the most justified PQ I've ever seen in my life. It was almost bad faith on the Democrats' part at the time. Then I watched the right to work PQ. Again, I'm not sure the Democrats were mad about it as much, but it blew up. It came to nothing. Nixon vetoed. He couldn't override it later. When you did pass it, it blew up at the voters. Doug Beck's in a tough spot.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
I mean, you bringing them back, they forget 7 months later. People say they won't forget. They kind of do forget. But boy, bringing them back 2 weeks later, that call that you put out, is that the final offer?
Well, as you saw last week, they haven't forgot.
No.
So let me just make that clear.
As an old senator, you had to think, okay, that's pretty slick, right?
Well, I thought Don Thalhuber must have been up for 48 hours figuring that plan out.
I thought your Blue Ribbon Commission on Education was just BS, like all of them. Then you put Thalhuber on it. And I'm like, smart.
We just kicked that off. I'll get back to your question in a minute. We have some unbelievable people on that workforce and the education of the future, the funding formula, modernization task force.
Nobody's as smart.
But Donnie T's on there, and he's really good. I'm really happy
on there.
because I respect his opinion and his historical kind of outlook for that issue. I mean, he was around when they wrote it, and Don is a very, very smart guy that has a way of thinking that you and I both like. You know, he's kind of that cool dude, and but he's very smart. But the emotions are high in the Senate right now, and as I've said in many different press avails, that the PQ is a tool that the majority party has, and a prolonged filibuster without a compromise is a tool that the minority party has. Doesn't matter when the Democrats were in charge and the Republicans were the minority party. That was always the coin that had two sides to it.
Cindy O'Loughlin has negotiated a lot of Prop A type piece of legislation. Tough negotiations, high stress, high emotions. I just thought she would do this one too. I really thought she'd get a deal done.
There were some deals out there. I think Proposition A probably had the closest ones, and you're up all night on some of those.
Big deal. Prop A gets done, an abortion IP without trans language, stadiums, all these things. Do you wish you were here personally? And I'm not just trying to say this because you're the governor, and I do respect you, but I do think, and I think the scoreboard would show, there's a different feeling in that Capitol when you're there. People are a little more pragmatic, a little more big picture. Do you wish you were here the last Wednesday of session?
Well, there's, first of all, thank you
Not
for
fair
the compliment.
to you, but it's the truth.
Yeah. I have a lot of respect for leadership in both chambers and from both parties who deal with different dynamics each session. You and I have both seen this. There's different personalities, there's different hot button issues, and I'm not sure one single person makes a noticeable change in how some of those things go down. But these are things that have been brewing for weeks, not just happened on that last Wednesday.
As you can see, he had a plan from the very beginning, and we discussed a little 1985 World Series. We'll be right back with some more of our TWMP Daily interview with Governor Mike Kehoe.
For more than a century, the St. Louis Carpenters Union has shaped our communities. Through trusted alliances, we deliver skilled professional craftspeople while our business partners provide the kind of quality jobs that keep our economy humming. It's a blueprint that has worked since 1882. Turning Missouri into a right-to-work state stalls progress, wipes out jobs, and kills momentum. Right to work is wrong for everyone. Let's keep Missouri moving forward. Visit carpdc.org to learn more.
You know, Missouri farmers have been doing what's best for their land for generations. After all, no one knows what it takes to feed and fuel a growing global population better than they do. So why are trial lawyers threatening Missouri farmers' best defense against weeds? Our farmers don't need to be controlled. They need to be supported. Keep glyphosate in our state. Show your support at TakeControlMissouri.com. Paid for by Modern Ag Alliance in support of Missouri farmers.
Missouri's childcare crisis is hurting our children, families, and even our economy. Currently, 78 Missouri counties are designated as childcare deserts, where the number of kids needing childcare exceeds the number of available options. Today, some Missouri families are spending more on childcare than housing, and Missouri's childcare shortage costs our economy $1.35 billion every year. Missouri families and businesses deserve better. Learn more at mochampionofchildren.com.
Some politicians claim cockfighting is a proud tradition, but is it really something to be proud of? Cockfighting isn't just cruel to animals, it's cruel to humans. It's linked to organized criminal activity, illegal gambling, even drug trafficking. Leading law enforcement and Christian groups have spoken out and are urging a stop to the violence. But some politicians want to give cockfighters a pass. Keep cockfighting out of our state.
We have a severe weather alert to report here. The storm is also bringing the threat of damaging winds and large hail.
Here's the thing. When storms bear down, we step up.
Ready to get?
You bet. Our teams are always ready to keep your power strong. Ameren.com/poweron.
Welcome back. We're going to go back and take up the second part of our interview from TWMP Daily with Governor Mike Kehoe on the week of special session. Is there a chance to amend that? I mean, is there that call, if you're Doug Beck, if you accept that, boy, that's going to be, your customers are not going to be happy. Is there a negotiation? Because I've interviewed Doug twice since the PQs and all that. Both times I've asked him, do you trust Mike Kehoe? Both times he said, even this morning, said, absolutely I do. Is there more out there in a negotiation? Because I think you're going to need some Democrat votes. Can you get 18 Republicans to vote for this?
Vote counts are difficult on any of these issues that you move forward. We can. I think the votes are there if we structure everything right. And to answer your question, we made the call based on what we thought fit what was needed for a special session that's extraordinary, that's time sensitive. Obviously, storm relief is very time sensitive. Keeping these economic development opportunities are time sensitive. But there's some other things out there that if people bring forward that makes sense to fit the call, we'd certainly take a look at it.
Let's Senator Nicola's idea. I thought his idea.
Oh, yeah. I love that bill.
I mean, I thought it was a good idea.
I've told him that.
Does that fit in something you could sit down and work with him on and get him to a yes?
Well, as you know, special sessions are different when the pressure point of getting somebody to do something is very different than when you're in normal session with different votes and different deadlines coming up. So you'd have to find a path, but I think Senator Nicola every day, no matter if we're in session or not, is trying to figure that out because it's a real problem for Jackson County residents. And definitely his legislation, he whittled it down to just Jackson County, but it's a problem for a lot of counties across the state.
It seems like that'd be great for the state. Yeah. You watched, you were here for some special sessions. I remember Boeing when they were trying to make a move that was pretty organized and well done. I remember the China Hub. When I think of a bad special session, I always think of China Hub. You were a very new senator. What'd you take from that?
That went on forever, didn't
Ever.
it? China
Ever and ever.
session? Jake wasn't even born then.
It was like masochists. They almost wanted to just come and punch themselves. It was, the Senate was not in a good place.
And I cut my vacation early because I thought that's what I was supposed to do. Ron Richards said, that's the stupidest thing you ever did is come back from vacation. Well, why'd you tell me that now, Ronnie?
But I think the China Hub was part of what made folks look to a guy like Ron. I think as bad as that was, it stirred the water a little. But look into this. Now that you're the governor, what do you learn from one that just went so bad?
Well, one, you got to have patience in these, and you got to understand that there's different people have different things that motivate them to vote or to consider the bill, and trying to understand what all those are. And as you know, I've said, the whole time I was running for office, and since I've been in office, I'm about relationships with House and Senate members. And so I'll continue to make sure we work through those things and see where this goes.
You prove that. I don't think that's just, I think I've seen you out working the halls. The cops bill. I honestly thought you'd have to appoint Senator May to something to get that done. But it hard work. You had a good case. I underestimated. I've been in St. Louis a couple of times the last 2 weeks since session ended. The excitement of the guys, not the guys even in the union, not your union leaders. The excitement of the guys on the street about August. They know August 20th, and I guarantee you they didn't know what that date meant at all until this year. What is August 20th going to look like? Because I think there's some excitement in that city over what's going to happen.
I think you're going to be the city residents, as well as anybody who has anything to do with law enforcement, are going to be excited about the board we put forward.
You got them picked out?
Unfortunately, possibly. Yeah. Unfortunately, Kara Spencer has went through baptism by fire with this tornado.
Sure.
But I can tell you that, and I believe she'll be one of the board members. Obviously, the mayor sits on that board. But this will be, I believe it will be a relief to her to not have to also mess with this, that we'll have something in place that will work very well for public safety.
Of this. If you're Kara Spencer, here, take this, and that's why I'll ask you, I've asked this privately. Both these things, a stadium in Kansas City and taking over the police department, I don't see a political upside for you anyway.
Yeah. I didn't run for this job for politics, you know that. Matt Blunt used to tell me he didn't run for the job for the business card. And I never forgot that. And that, I'm here to try to make things just a little bit better than when I got here. And, that doesn't, I don't take political risk as one of the factors to do what's right and wrong.
There's an excitement of a street level cop. Not a guy he's in the FOP, but he's, he goes to Union Hall twice a year. There's an excitement on a street level cop about what's about to happen.
Yeah. What's
that going to look like? You're going to flood downtown? What do you do?
Well, we're going to make downtown safer and all parts of the city safer. We're going to make it to where people want to be in St. Louis City. They want to be in downtown the way I remember it when I was a kid, riding my bikes. In North St. Louis, we went to the Harlem Tap Room after the tornado on Martin Luther King Boulevard. That's an area that I used to hang out in, play basketball in a gymnasium right down the street from there. St. Louis can be really great. And I think we just need the right tools put in place. I'm a fan of Chief Tracy. I've said that all along. I believe these are additional tools that will help him, along with Gabe Gore, who's made an incredible difference. And so we're at the point, geospatial is about to open. You've got a new mayor. There's a lot of things that could really pivot St. Louis into a good direction. And remember, Scott, that 5-county area is responsible for somewhere around 40% of the state's GDP. But when national news is watching something that happened in Florissant or in St. Charles or in South County, they think it's St. Louis.
Yeah.
And so I think making sure we have St. Louis put its best foot forward for its residents and for visitors will be incredible economic success to the state of Missouri.
I always have a question. You go to ball game, right? Go to patios afterwards. So ball game's over 9:30. Go to patios for an hour. What about that Magnolia Hotel up on Washington? Right now, I don't think I would have Casey walk that. I think I'd want to. I'm not sure I'd walk that. I think how long will it take to penetrate people's impression of St. Louis and make them think it's a nice night? I'll walk those 6 blocks. I'm safe.
Keep us off the front page of the paper.
Yeah.
Keep us out of the news. You mentioned patios. I have to tell you a funny story. My daughters texted me one time. So we're at patios. We met this guy that you know. and we're going to send you a picture. And they sent me a picture. It's Ryan McKenna. And so I called him and I said, run as fast as you can. Get away from that guy. They said, but Dad, he said he's a really good friend of yours. To your point, I had a in-depth interview with a reporter during the campaign, and they were fighting the state control issue, which is, as you know, residents of St. Louis City that would be on the board. And so after we got off the air and the microphones are off, I said, I'll tell you what, why don't you meet me at the convention center tonight? I have no detail. I was a candidate, and we'll meet there about 9:30, and we'll walk around the blocks a few times at the St. Louis Convention Center. Oh, he said, I got, all these excuses came out. I'm like, exactly.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Isn't ultimately the true test of whether the crime plan is working is whether businesses come back to St. Louis?
Well, that's what I've said all along, is that I'm not looking for any poll except for one.
Mm-hmm.
When businesses invest in St. Louis, specifically in the downtown core, which they want to,
Yeah.
I'm talking to businesses ready to do that. That will be the green light that tells us we've got things going in the right direction. But that's exactly right, Jake.
You gonna be able to get Doug Beck to get 10 votes on this stadium plan?
Does that count Republicans too?
You could pick out 10 Republicans now.
No, Doug and I have a very good relationship. I know he's had some tough times this session with the various issues. He's got his hands full.
Sure.
But I'm hopeful that the members of both parties, the Democrat and the Republican Party, look what's best for the citizens of Missouri, whether it's the tornado relief or storm relief, the economic development opportunity for the west side of the state, to understand if we don't do this, what does that look like? That I think when they start thinking in those terms, they might come around to it.
Will Governor Mike Kehoe be negotiating this?
I told the leadership I'm happy on both sides, House and Senate. If they want me to be involved, I will be. But they need to run their own show, and I'm sensitive to that. I understand it's very hard to be in leadership, and I want to make sure that I'm not the guy that's saying, well, when I was here, we did that. I don't want to be that guy. But if they say to me, hey, we need some help moving this piece for this piece.
I was here at the China Hub thing. Let me tell you how this goes south.
Oh, yeah. Well, I was here. I was in the leadership then. But, yeah, so.
So, John Patterson, I would assume you have a pretty motivated speaker in getting this done.
I would assume. And you should know the House took a really strong vote on it in the last week of session there. So John's been a great guy to work with. I will tell you that the leadership, Ashley in the House, Alex Riley, leadership in both sides, House and Senate, Democrat and Republican, we don't always agree, but we've had a very good relationship.
Well, as you can see from that interview, Governor Kehoe not only had a plan for this special session, got a plan going forward. To catch you up, the Missouri Senate did take up all the items he put in his call, essentially some tornado assistance for folks in St. Louis and building a new stadium for the Royals and Chiefs in Kansas City, and a nuclear reactor, the start of a new nuclear reactor at the University of Missouri Columbia. It really was the I-70 special session. I want to thank Governor Kehoe and thank all of you. Remember, catch us each week on all of our social media platforms for TWMP Daily. We're bringing you 2 different newsmakers next week, so you can stay up in between episodes of This Week in Missouri Politics. Speaking of, I want to thank the folks down in Springfield, Steve Gargano, and all the folks at the Springfield Cardinals at Hammons Field for allowing us to shoot down there. I really enjoyed talking to the new mayor, Jeff Schrog, and Melanie Stinnett when she's launching her campaign. We hope you'll come back here and we'll talk all politics and wrap up all the special session news when the House gets back next week here on This Week in Missouri Politics.
This Week in Missouri Politics is sponsored by the Missouri Automobile Dealers Association, Ameren, Spire, the United Electric Cooperative, and the Missouri Association of Career Fire Protection Districts.